Heather, hello. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to speak with us today. So we'll just start off. We're talking about Indigenous policing here on this episode of InFocus. Indigenous policing was a major topic following the tragedy in James Smith Cree Nation last month. How do you think Indigenous policing in the community, could have maybe helped that situation?
Well, first of all, it's been a tough watershed moment for our people, as the issues unfolded, and again, what has come to light in regards to the policing and how matters were escalated because of one of the biggest grievances, a slow response time. This is a case like others where police could have been prevented had there been action prior to the incident escalating. We also know there's other issues there regarding release plans and the inability to support a release. That it took a huge amount of I think attention, and for example, addictions were an issue, mental health was an issue, and also the simple fact the gentlemen were at large, right? So yeah, there's a whole host of issues there, but when we look at community safety within our nations, it's common that they just aren't there. Police aren't there, to protect and to serve on the ground in our communities, and that's a problem.
And Heather, I wanted to ask you, I'm not sure if you would know this, but do you know what the current response times are for police response in some of these First Nations communities in Saskatchewan?
Oh my goodness, it really does vary, and I will say from hours to sometimes, in some cases, days.
Wow, really?
I live in a First Nations community myself, so unless there's something, an accident or a fatality that has happened, but when it comes to situations like theft or break-ins and those kinds of things, it's just not a response that we get immediately. In many cases, not even that day. I'm still waiting a week. There was a theft that happened in my own yard, over a week now, waiting for a response and for the RCMP to come. So, like I say, and that's common. That's very common within, our communities. So, when we look at, in this case of James Smith, you look at, 40 minutes, no response on the reserve and within the First Nation, when the incident was taking place. So, yeah, it's a sad situation, mind you. I think that, and we're going to talk about that later on, community-based policing. When we talk about law enforcement versus protect and serve, and of course, prevention, which I think is key in First Nations communities.
Well, that kind of leads to my next question is, would a First Nations-based police service right in these communities, would that do you think that would help, really, to have them right there and to have, these properly trained individuals as well right there in these communities?
Absolutely. I think that's, we need to occupy the field better in terms of, essential services, having not only just policing, but, we need our young folks. We need our young people, First Nations, Aboriginal people being recruited. When we look at, how we can build trust and really get the authentic treatment or authentic services, especially when, you're doing wellness checks and those kinds of things, knowing and understanding, our people is it's vital, in terms of having good service in any sector, but especially policing. Getting to know our people and who the strangers are and who, it's I think that's really key. And we need our officers to spend more time with the young folks within the schools, prevention, the gang issues, the drugs, alcohol, all the number one killer of our young folks, say our young people. There's a huge opportunity there, to make those positive connections and not have it so our children grow up afraid of police, when all they're doing is hauling away the parents and, being part of the problem. So.
Well, just in that regard, what can be done to get these youth involved in keeping their community safe? I mean, like my dad's an RCMP officer, and all I wanted to be when I grew up was RCMP because I saw my dad and what he did, and I had that connection personally, and I know a lot of these kids, kids and community members, they grow up sort of skeptical of police at best, really, right? So what can be done to, like you said, get these youth involved and maybe get the youth involved in policing some of their own communities?
Well, I think some of those things we've already been doing within the FSIN. I know the Bold Eagle program, is one of the young steps, first steps, from a regional perspective. Getting involved in those programs are really, vital and important. The other, there's other programs like cadets and so forth. When we start learning. About, protecting and, men of honor or people of honor, men and women. And I think, we need to, have more opportunity, better opportunity, initiatives for young folks to be recruited. And but I think it's going to start by, first of all, building trust and that relationship within the police in our community in order to, I guess, open the door for young people to even have that desire. We need some good stories. We need heroes in policing. And the way it is, when you look at, First Nations disproportionate amount of our people incarcerated, well, that's been the experience, law enforcement and come and take mom or dad away, haul them away and take them to jail. Those a lot of hardships around policing, and big fines are being handed out, and even simply driving, lately, even to have a license in this province, it's very with the big fines and the cost, and of course we end up criminalizing people for poverty, right? So there's a whole boatload of issues here, but I really do think the time is now to start steering our young folks towards a career in policing. But we need to change things too in terms of policy and when we look at and procedure, when you look at how we are serving, when you look at MMIWG, and all the reports that have been done in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, there's a lot, there's a lot of, good work there that really, tells the story about racism, discrimination in the police force, and our women and men, average First Nation men, not being taken seriously when called upon in reports. The Charlene Aubuchon, there's another tragedy that could have been prevented, if we had the same service others do. But yeah, I think that's community-based policing is essential. And I would also like to see an MMIWG unit in every major police force in our region as well, to help serve and enhance and build the trust and the authenticity of services there for our people.
Yeah, and just sort of with that, the federal government has just announced, millions for First Nations policing. Is it enough, too little? Is it too late? Or is it, what's your thoughts on this funding?
Well, I think it's never too late when we look at, the hope and moving forward. Like I say, you look at the Charlene Aubuchon situation, you look at James Smith and the tragedies there, that many more, too many to count. Yeah. We need to come to a point of change. And I think, when you look at, a transition, for self-administered policing, a transitional period could take probably at least 2 years. So in the meantime, what do we do right now? Well, there is some capacity, through COVID, we've had peacekeepers occupying the field within our communities, and they've been very helpful in terms of helping people to feel safe and protected, not only from COVID but other negative elements that come into our communities. There has been a lot of data in terms of drug selling and people being more aware of where this activity is. So I think there's been a lot of capacity, and given the magnitude of James Smith, the urgency is now. What about right now today? I think there's some good examples out there, like File Hills has their own partnership on the reserve in File Hills Capel Police Detachment, which is funded. Mind you, they do have funding challenges there. It is really isn't enough. I think they're working on some infrastructure, which I'm happy to hear that's needed. There's other communities, like just last week, for example, Buffalo River. There's some infrastructure issues there in terms of having a holding unit there. They have to take offenders out. It may be 2 or 3 hours before they can have somebody back in the community. So there's a whole boatload of issues. We have satellite policing. That's another option. But I think right now it's really should be up to the community, the First Nations. We have hotspots. We have, some communities that aren't as in need as others. And I think more training for peacekeepers. Some might want to look in that direction, but we really do need the training. We do need our people to begin to be empowered to, start protecting ourselves and, being, occupying that field that, we've been historically, we've always been on the other end. I'll just say, when you look at the history of policing and just check it out, Johnny McDonald.
Well, so given everything you've just mentioned, I'll leave it, I guess, with this question is, what needs to happen sort of right now in the short term and long term to make, First Nations policing and Indigenous policing a reality in these communities?
Well, I think we need make a strong effort in terms of mobilization, community mobilization, crime prevention, and start, looking into that area a little more. And it's something that we are lacking. When it comes to, plans and, we have a lot of First Nations that live together or side by side. And I think looking at some feasibility studies, I know PAGC, Prince Albert Grand Council, is doing a lot of good work there too, and I think they're ready. But like for right now, I think it's up to the community, and I think, they're looking at training. Some are looking at outside security to come in, contracting that. But whatever it takes, we have to do something, our people are important, and I think we really need to take a serious look at our relationships with police communities and police, and start really making an honest effort to, work together and respect some of the laws in the jurisdictions, chief and council, when we look at band council resolutions and, helping to enforce some of the bylaws, that they feel are important. I think that's a good start.
Well, that's certainly well said, Heather. We're going to have to leave it right there, but thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day. We certainly appreciate your insight and your thoughts regarding all of this. So again, thank you for taking some time for us.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Have a good day.